we're talking about XRP, and the question was, can you explain exactly how XRP fits into that bigger picture of the future that we're moving into, and explain it to me like I'm 5, and how does it fit into the liquidity world, right? XRP acts like what the US dollar acts like today, right? What we were saying is somebody who earns, let's say, Indonesian rupiah, wants to save in dollars because the rupiah is when it needs to transact globally, it goes through the dollar, right? So there's a lot of people buying the dollar to be able to do their business activities in the world. So let's look at how that works today. So first day I'm drawing stuff on my laptop, so bear with me because this is going to be clunky. Right now, if you want to send money, this is you. Right? You want to send money to your friend. If you have IDR, your IDR actually goes to New York. Don't ask me why, but it goes to New York. And then New York transfers it to your friend who's in China. Let's say. This is just terrible. So using the US dollar, your IDR goes to from your bank account to another bank. That bank has something called a Nostro Vostro account. Usually it's JP Morgan, Citibank, or HSBC, the 3 big banks. They have Nostro Vostro accounts, which is mine and yours accounts, which have a bunch of IDR sitting in it and a bunch of USD sitting in it, right? So it goes to like another bank. They have accounts that have USD, and they convert the IDR into USD, and then the USD gets sent through the New York branch of that bank to China as USD. So it goes to New York for no reason, then it goes over here as USD, and then in China, there's actually another branch of the same bank that has another account with liquidity sitting inside. I'm just so terrible at drawing it. That has yuan and USD sitting in there. So there's literally trillions of dollars of liquidity that needs to sit in these accounts for us to be able to transact globally. The other thing that happens is when you send $1 billion, that ties up $1 billion of that money, because what you said is you put it into an account, that account locks up that money and releases USD from another account, that's why it takes 5 days, because it needs to go through everybody's checkpoints and everybody takes a fee on top. But all this money sitting there is a waste of liquidity. Now, as we increase the numbers that we're transferring all the time, it increases the amount of liquidity you need, because it's like now we're printing $1 trillion every 100 days. So we need billions of dollars moving because of the inflation, right? All of that is a liquidity problem. That's why when they say like there's a banking liquidity crisis, that's what it means. There's just not enough water left in the banking system to be able to carry the flows of value that need to run the world, right? Ripple owns not XRP, Ripple owns the patent on something called ODL, on-demand liquidity. And the way Ripple's solving that entire problem is, first of all, instead of it going through New York like this and going through the US dollar and a bunch of banks, in the Ripple world, you'll just have, you and your whatever currency account, let's say you have IDR, turning it into XRP, and the XRP will go and turn into USD and go into your friend's account within 3 seconds, right? But it turns into XRP instead of turning into the dollar. The benefit of that is XRP's price can keep increasing forever with this hyperinflation. It doesn't matter. The dollar's price increasing or dollar's value decreasing means that the number of dollars has to go up, means that you're destroying wealth. You're destroying the dollar holders in that liquidity crisis. The future system is going to be a system where we don't have new reserve currencies. We have reserve assets. We'll have reserve currencies in different factions, like Canada, US, Mexico. They'll use the USD as their reserve currency in their region. The BRICS will use the BRICS. The euro will use the euro. That's why now the euro is separating. In between all those currencies will sit this bridge that allows global transfers to happen. Right? That's one thing. There's a patent on the on-demand liquidity. That's another thing. They literally have the hub that allows you to be able to transact in all other cryptos through this bridge. And this is hooked up to the rails of the banking system already, and we're going to go through all of that. So it's basically sitting in the middle of all this stuff as the new US dollar, effectively. That doesn't mean the dollar goes away. The dollar will need to be converted into XRP, and then we'll travel to the other side. Now, at the end of these points is what we were talking about earlier, where Algorand, XDC, XLM, all of them come in, right? But that's what we're going to go through.
And this is why you think XRP is going to explode massively, because it has to be big enough. It has to be big enough to be full.
Not really, actually. Yeah, because XRP is only needed. The question was, this is why I think XRP is going to explode, because it's so necessary for this process, and because of that, the value is going to grow? No. I think that will happen down the road as this transition happens, right? Which is going to take until 2030 to materialize in a significant way, and then probably until 2040 for the dollar to become, a relic, effectively. That's about how it happens in history. But XRP is going to explode simply because it is being used in the background, and there's been price suppression because of the lawsuit, right? Now we're seeing a pattern develop that in crypto markets, the tokens they're using to build the frameworks are the ones with the least amount of hype. They go silent in the background, and the price doesn't move very much. Hedera had went basically silent for a while. We met the Hedera guys here. They were, they were up to a lot of good things, but they didn't create very much hype. And then all of a sudden, BlackRock launches a $25 billion fund on their chain, and now we're like, oh shit, they've been working with BlackRock the whole time. Same thing with XRP, same thing with XDC, same thing with Algorand. So because of that, the price is suppressed. It's been suppressed forever. For 6 years, it's been making a triangle, and now it just broke out of that triangle for the first time on certain charts, right? And in history, XRP moves like no other asset. That we know for sure. I remember this clearly from 2017, where the entire market was moving and it was just going sideways for like what felt like ever. So everybody gave up, shitcoin, and then right when Bitcoin turns and finishes its final run, after Bitcoin turned, it goes for its final spike and became the best performing asset in 2017. People forget about that, right? And even now, which top 10 crypto do you have that's at this price compared to its all-time high? Even at today's price, it's at 55 cents. So, to me, it just makes the most amount of sense on a risk-adjusted basis, buying something cheap. So we're going to cover all of that, but that was a nice little startup. Okay, so what we already started off with is that money is liquidity. Liquidity is what allows value to flow across the world. Not only is it the liquidity that matters, the fluidity of money that matters, it's the velocity of money that really matters, right? I can take $1 and transact it really quick 1 billion times, and I can do $1 billion of business. Whereas if $1 billion only moves half a time a week, then I'm doing less business with $1 billion than I can with $1, right? So right now, the velocity of money is so slow. It takes 5 days. Because of Eid al-Fitr, it took 2 weeks for money to move. 2 weeks in today's world. XRP takes that down to 3 seconds, right? So the liquidity, the velocity of liquidity goes through the roof when this new system comes in. And that in and of itself is going to create a large amount of GDP growth and stuff. The tokenization of assets is going to make a massive impact on this. And that's why XRP has been quietly sitting in the back, building the rails where all of these assets will go, which is like, your bonds, derivatives, commodities, all these things. Right now, if you want to buy and sell them or, transact in them, most of them you can't even transact in. But if you want to actually interact with them, they're not very liquid when it comes to getting cash into your bank account and then doing it again, right? If you want to buy stocks, buy commodities, buy bonds, you have to go through an intermediary. Into a brokerage account, then you make the purchase, then Goldman Sachs front runs you and then sells it to you for a penny an extra penny, and then that's the system itself. That's why most people don't get rich in that system. This new system is going to be tokenized versions of everything, hooking up to these rails of XRP and that value flowing over the top. You only need the XRP for 3 seconds. So it's not like you need trillions of dollars of XRP locked up. But once you increase the flow, even for that 3 seconds, there's a lot of liquidity demands. Now, banks and other institutions will need to hold their own liquidity simply to be able to guarantee that they can transact whatever value that they need. So there will be demand. The more important thing to me is like, who are the central banks hooking up to? Now, this is where it gets very interesting. XRP and Ripple are now connected to the Federal Reserve. There's a very high likelihood that the FedNow system is connected directly to XRP, because when there's transfers going through, you can now in the US, you can go directly from XRP to your bank account using the FedNow system. So the FedNow system has direct XRP to USD conversion, which that's insane. Which other currency has that? So the FedNow system's hooked up to it. Swift is already confirmed as a partner. The biggest partner you want to watch out for is R3. That's your XDC and Corda, because R3 is the face that's doing all of this work. Because the new system that we're looking at looks like this. In the middle, the rails are built from XRP. On the ends, there's public blockchains like Algo and private blockchains like R3. R3 is the company, and then their token is XDC, right? So that means when value needs to flow privately to companies, XDC is the value mechanism, and R3 is the framework is the company building the frameworks that they're going to use on the private side. On the public side, publicly visible transactions, Algorand is known to be dealing with those. Now, all the cryptos are going to hook up to these systems, because XRP is basically XRP is a interledger protocol. So it sits between protocols and is the rails that everything runs on. And so when you think about it, XRP is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies that exists, right? People don't even give it that. It's like, hey, this thing's been through more bear markets than our grandma. And it is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies. Google, when XRP launched, 2012, okay? When ETH launched, 2015. So it's 3 years older than Ethereum. It's hooked up to every central bank that I can see or think about. I mean, it's hooked up to all the banks. It's hooked up to all the institutions. It has a CBDC app built in, which they've just given to banks to say, hey, try this out for building your CBDCs on our rails. And there are many banks confirmed to be doing that. It has the on-demand liquidity patent to even solve the liquidity problem, so you don't need all this money sitting in different accounts and you can move it within 3 seconds. It has something called RippleNet, which is a network of different providers and partners that are using their technology to hook them into the entire infrastructure. They've been here for 10 years. Ripple has, working on specifically that, is getting all their partners to adopt all this technology, including banks, including institutions, IBMs, all that stuff. We're going to go through exactly who that is in a second. They have something called a liquidity hub, which is built so that any institution can hook up to it and transact directly from fiat to any digital asset inside of this little hub. It's like a dashboard that provides all the liquidity you need to make the market, allows you to transact between fiat and any digital asset, which means everything else's liquidity is built to go through this. And everything, all of crypto, all the bonds, all the everything. So this is why the XRP army is so nuts about all the value, it's because technically speaking, the infrastructure does support that. And a lot of these kind of partnerships and things I'm telling you, it's not just me saying it. This is the developers who are building the rails in the banking system telling us all of this stuff. And there's a guy named Quincy Jones that did a really good bunch of pieces where he explains the code. If you look through the code, you can see all of this stuff. Just look through just look through the code. Just how we all look through code. Okay, Liquidity Hub allows all the other cryptos to transact within it, right? The XRPL is the XRP ledger, which is actually, it gets confused. Like Ripple is the company, is like a literal actual company, that has all of these systems out I just explained. You know, the CBDC app has a thing called RippleNet connected to, is partnered with Swift, has a liquidity hub, on-demand patent is held by the company Ripple itself. Then they launched a token called XRP. And XRP is the token that they use for a lot of these functionalities, but there's a lot of these functionalities that don't use XRP. So when you hear XRPL, which is XRP Ledger, that's actually like an open source common good that they've created effectively. So if somebody can take the XRP Ledger system and create their own ledger, which doesn't hook up to XRP. But if they wanted to, it would very quickly hook up to XRP, right? So that XRPL is actually built to be an interledger protocol. So it sits in between different protocols, not just even through the liquidity hub. It's just it can connect together different protocols. Now, this is the first crypto to actually have regulatory clarity, like literally written in the law saying this is not a security. The institutional sales counted as kind of a security, but that's debatable. But the actual sales were confirmed to not be a security. And it's the only one on paper that's been proven to not be a security by the SEC, right? Go ahead.
What's the implication of that? That's not a security. Tax tool.
The implications of it not being a security is that when you're building on it, you have clarity as to like, I can build a company and know that I'm not going to get regulatorily attacked later on for what I'm doing by the most dangerous regulator in the world, the US, right? And then also, like, whatever securities regulations exist, you don't need to bend those. You can make completely new regulations for it, whatever the digital asset regulations are, right? Like here, we're going to make new regulations, which is actually what the meeting tonight is. Also talking about, like, how do you regulate this asset class so that it doesn't fall under all the garbage of securities regulations, which means the old system, you don't have to go through the old system. You create a new system, right? And like here's one of the biggest reasons why. Whenever I would speak to like a sovereign wealth fund manager, right? I'd be like, okay, why you want to invest in Indonesia? Yeah, of course, we love Indonesia. Okay, but like we have tokens you can invest in. They're like, yeah, we would love to do that. Tokenized assets in Indonesia, we would love to do that. I'm like, okay, then do it. They're like, we can't, because their funds have mandates, right? Their trusts and funds have mandates, and the mandates say you can only invest in regulated stuff. Obviously, you can't take a sovereign wealth fund's money and invest it in unregulated shit. So regulated simply means, okay, there should be regulations that are clear enough for you to get into it, but at the least it should be regulatorily classified in some capacity, so you can put it into a bucket or a tranche, right? And having this regulatory clarity means that now when I tokenize something and register it as a security and run it on this protocol, it's guaranteed to be, completely compliant, which means their liquidity can then actually enter this market. They're the ones with the big bucks, right? Right now, institutions might be here, but the sovereign wealth funds aren't here. You want the sovereign wealth funds and the giant funds. BlackRock is dipping their toe right now, right? So all of that is to say that Fed now settles on XRP directly to accounts. Department of Homeland Security calls XRP a bridge currency. Okay, it's listed on the IMF, WEF, FATF, Financial Action Task Force, World Bank, and government documents. Ripple literally writes the papers of the WEF, like they co-author the papers of the WEF. Okay, on all their documentation, it's already been there. It's the only one with regulatory clarity. It's working directly with countries and directly with governments, like, and I can confirm this on many, many different levels. You can just, if you sleuth a little bit, you can find all the details. But they are working directly with the central banks, directly with the governments. They've just beta test tokenized the currency of different countries already, including Palau, which has now been announced. It's ISO compliant, which is the new banking system that's coming out that needs to be, and it's not just compliant, the code is custom built, like, to sync perfectly with this new system. Price has been suppressed for 6 years. That's one of my biggest ones. What I want are assets that have prices suppressed for super long, because what price suppression means is somebody's been selling it. And Ripple themselves have been selling it. Ripple's had 50 billion of XRP. Out of the 100 billion supply, 50 billion XRP was released, and 50 billion XRP was being released at a certain set rate per month. At one point, they were releasing 1 billion XRP per month. I think now they have 4.5 billion left total to release. And this last month, they released 500 million XRP. So they're literally dumping supply onto the markets to keep the prices low, so that their institutions and everybody can onboard without, and while the rest of us idiots are like, we're so shiny syndrome happy that we're like, we just leave. That's the whole point. It's like, yeah, go buy dog-eared meme coins while we're over here, loading up on this thing. Now, 4.5 billion is left. At some point, the lawsuit ends. It's the only one with regulatory clarity. Now, if they go after Ethereum as a security, where do you think that capital goes? To the only one that has all of this stuff, right? And the historical price action of XRP is exactly this. It always, as far back as we know, which is two major cycles, it does exactly this. It goes dead silent for a long time, and then we see a spike in institutional activity. And then right following that spike is where magic happens. So it's currently doing exactly that. I got to log into all this stuff. Go back and look it up. It's basically, it goes flat and does nothing for an extended period of time, and then it's like a heartbeat tick, right? Like if you go to I'll go to CoinMarketCap. There we go. It's like, it's like remember the 5th of November, a date that shall not be forgot. It's like, okay, it did nothing for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden, April 2017 just has a massive spike, and then it does nothing for a long period of time, and then February of 2018, what is this? No, this is like November of 2017 goes bananas and just goes straight up and then crashes straight down, right? And if you actually zoom in back here, it did the same thing back in like 13, 14. But the point is, you want things that are suppressed. You want things that are quietly being used in the background. You want things when nobody wants them, and then sell it to them once everybody wants them. You can see that it was at $3.80 the last cycle, or in 2017, and today it's at 55 cents. So you got a guaranteed discount on it. So here's everybody who's using it, confirmed, and this is only what's confirmed. Amazon Web Services, American Express, Bank of America, SBI Holdings, Santander, MoneyGram, Revolut, Western Union, Hitachi, UniCredit, UBS, Santander, National Bank of Abu Dhabi, ATB, and these are just the ones that I know that I'm naming off. Barclays, central banks: Bank of England, Hong Kong Monetary Authority, Bank of Colombia, Bank of Thailand, Central Bank of Bahrain, Monetary Authority of Singapore, National Bank of Cambodia, Royal Monetary Authority of Bhutan, Saudi Central Bank, Indonesian Central Bank I know is working with them for sure. Palau Central Bank is working with them from my personal experience. They're working directly with World Bank, IMF, SWIFT, and RippleNet is 1,000 other financial institutions. Like, tell me another crypto that can even say one of these words. That's supposedly the enemies. Now, yes, I get it. This is a banker coin. So like, I'm here to make bankers money because I think they've made a lot of money off of us, right? In this cycle, one of the biggest mistakes that I saw people make with XRP last time in 2017 was they dumped it all after the first spike. And the first spike actually on a log scale was the highest growth, but people thought it was done after that, which, I mean, a lot of people, did great. They multiplied an XRP and then went to other stuff, right? But what I'm going to do is, or my normal strategy, right? At each multiple, take out 20% of the initial capital. At 5x, I'm whole again. The rest of it, let it run for some period of time and let it spike and do all this stuff. Now, if the thesis is that all the cryptos pump and this one doesn't, that just doesn't make sense. But what we've seen now, a dynamic that's playing out in this crypto market that most people are missing, is that the market isn't moving together. It's not the whole market moving like it did back in 2017, even 2020, right? We saw AI coins make their move. We saw Solana and Solana-based stuff go nuts. But actually, retail's not here. Retail hasn't come. I know. Like, I get calls from retail. grandma calls me, you know? And like when you look at Google Trends, it's way lower than it was before, and real retail hasn't come.
Retail is the public, the general public.
Yeah, the exit liquidity hasn't come. This is and this is what Raul guys are talking about. You know, they're all joking inside of the talks. They're like, look, this is just us fucking around. This is us crypto heads like, oh, let's make some memes, let's make a meme run, let's just, you know, whatever, test out some new systems, da 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 da. But actually, this entire pump of Bitcoin was just the kind of, it's like what happened before 2020, like at the tail end of 2019, where it just kind of went up and it chilled out. There's probably going to be a final shakeout. In that shakeout, and so what we need for XRP to pump, according to my way of thinking about it, is we need Bitcoin to go into all-time highs, like proper all-time highs, because that's when the mania returns. That's when the true altcoin cycle starts, where Bitcoin goes into full-on price discovery. Ethereum, then everybody takes off. Then everybody goes down the risk curve. That still hasn't played out, but there's some insider chirping going on that like something's going to happen end of May from the Fed, and they're going to make a pivot or something. But basically, expect that by June, I'm back in the market, no matter what happens. The other thing with XRP is like, I'm kind of torn on this one. I'm not keen on holding it all the way until the next cycle because it's so painful to hold. It's so painful. Like XRP is the most brutal crypto to hold. Like we even joke about it in the Real Vision community, and it's like Ripple is like, it's like having nipple clamps. They're just called Ripple. They're called Ripple clamps, right? Because it's so painful. Like you watch everything else go, and it just kind of hangs out and it hangs out and it hangs out. And then one day you wake up. The last time for my birthday, it just went right, and I just wake up and I'm just getting calls and people are going nuts, right? And then it did nothing, and then it calmed down and bored everybody to death again. So that's a dynamic that's only made for the very, very, very few. And here's another secret. Okay, I have a very good source. By that I mean I have a friend who is a liquidity provider for Ripple, who has confirmed that Ripple actually doesn't use XRP for liquidity. It's very, very small amount of the liquidity that's going through Ripple today is going through XRP. Actually, the vast majority of liquidity is still moving through USDT because of this lawsuit, right? So the lawsuit ending and them switching to XRP as liquidity is the kind of thing that would cause that spike, right? So just hang out. Just hang out, like enjoy the profits from the other stuff, right? There's a very number of things.
It seems it's a reasonably small amount of money to have a large section. It feels like that. If you had 10 grand invested in XRP, then we're in the top 2% of Ripple.
Right. Yeah. If you have 10,000 XRP, you're in basically the top of the world when it comes to Ripple holders, XRP holders. Yeah. That's what you want to be. You want to be the one that, like, now everybody wants Bitcoin. And I'm like, no, then I don't want it, right? By the time everybody wants XRP, I will be happy to sell it to them, right? Now, one of the issues that has happened is like people are having a hard time finding it in different jurisdictions. So now it's starting to be relisted on many exchanges. Make sure you have a reputable exchange. And actually, let me log into this because I really want to show you this institutional activity, which was very, very powerful for me to see. Because you see this exact same spike in institutional activity right before anything major happens in anything, but you do see it as a pronounced effect in XRP in its price action. And to add to your point, of course, you know, you have to take a small amount of risk to make a lot on it. I mean, if it plays out the way that we're expecting, because it's at 55 cents now and it was at $3.80 in the past when it was much less valuable, technically speaking. And when the entire world wasn't at a point, when I was telling people then, we're going to break into factions, the world's going to fight, and like, you know, the people are like, what are you talking about? The world's running perfectly fine. This was 2017, right? And people are like, how can you say the world's going to tear apart? Everything's perfect. And we're 6 years down the road, and you've seen the world has torn into multiple factions. So everything that needed to be in place for this system to actually make sense is in place now. And I would not be surprised if by at the end of 2026, this switch over to this new financial system happens. I would definitely not be surprised, because now we're on the accelerated rate of change in the world. We're going full exponential now. All right.
All right. I've got another question for you.
Perfect. So where are we? Right here. Okay. So this is the triangle that it's been forming for 6 years. Right. And then it finally it went and broke out. Everybody thought, great, we're going to go bananas. And then of course comes back, knocks everybody out of their lawns, goes back and causing more pain as always. But that's not what I wanted to show you. If you go to a Lux Algo view on this, now we're looking at it in log. This is institutional activity, this red thing down here. And what I notice is it's actually at some of the highest levels it's ever been. And in its history, that institutional activity, like here, this was selling institutional activity. That makes sense. Here we had all this institutional activity and you know, it went from 0.0040 to 0.023 or 30 cents. Sorry, 3 cents, right? 4/10 of a penny, is that? Yeah, 4/10 of a penny to 3 cents. Then nothing, a long time, years and years of nothing. And then you see this institutional activity spike, or whale spike, we call it. And then it takes off, same thing. That time it went from 5/10 of a penny to 44 cents. And then a lot of people sold it here. And then they went from there to $3.80, right? But each time it's accompanied by a spike. And this time around, we've seen this massive sustained spike in institutional activity right now. Now, what happens next? Who knows? All I know is it's poised and ready. It's cheap. And when it moves, it does this, right? Like that.
With the institutional activity, how do they keep the level if there's a high level of institutional activity?
These are great questions, actually.
So on the far right of the chart, there's a lot of institutional activity, right? But the price action is staying fairly flat. What's going on there? Does that mean the institutions are buying and selling more or less at the same time to keep it level?
Institutional activity or whale activity is actually just the activity of large amounts of XRP. It doesn't mean bought or sold. It just means all of a sudden hundreds of millions of dollars of XRP starts moving. It's like
so not being bought or sold, just moving.
Right. So it's
from
like
one wallet to another.
Imagine this. Billions of dollars of XRP is sitting there for a long time. And then all of a sudden you see 100 million move, and then 60 million move, and then 100 million move, and then you just start to see all this activity. And you're like, wait, the whales are moving around hundreds of millions of dollars of XRP. What are they getting ready for?
Oh, I see. But so by movement, you mean, say, from wallet to wallet, not from fiat to exchange?
No.
Into XRP.
Yeah. I mean, that would show up on the price chart in some capacity.
Right.
I mean, that is partially happening. It's moving because there's OTC sales happening. OTC purchasing and OTC sales. That's one of the big reasons why. And OTC goes from wallet to wallet. It doesn't go through an exchange, right?
Right.
And then there's Ripple dumping 500 million to 1 billion XRP per month. And if you think about it, wait a minute, if they're dumping that much per month, shouldn't the price drop? No, there's a buyer on the other side.
Right.
So there's this transaction process happening, and it always happens in the background while you're not watching, you know? If you're looking at this, this is probably the first time you heard about XDC. Well, they've been building the world in the background for a while. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Algo today. Your friends tokenizing gold on Algo, but you know, Algo's forgotten. All these little coins that are actually building the stuff get forgotten until one day they just go, boom, guess what? We've been hooking up to the rails of the financial system. So same thing with XRP. Like it's now this activity means, yes, there's buying and selling happening in the background. OTC in a way that doesn't move the price because their goal is not to move the price. Now they're launching their stable coin, and people just kind of just went, how many stable coins are there? There's USDT, USDC, and the USDC is the only one that's regulated and is the arm of the US government. Well, guess what? Now we got another one coming. It's the Ripple stable coin that's going to be regulatorily compliant, is going to hook directly into FedNow because the system is built like that. And they're about to control the all you need is a stable coin for the US to then transact in the US factions and for a long time. Later on, this is how the global economy and the activity of the US will be separated from the effects that it has on the Asia and other places. Right now, if the US coughs, everybody else gets a sneeze, gets the flu, gets a sneeze. Everybody else get a sneeze. If the US coughing, everybody else is getting sneezing.
Mhm.
But in this new system, the XRP price will fluctuate. It'll be priced on both sides. It'll be priced in USD for something. It'll be priced for in BRICS for something. It'll be priced in euros, right? So it's a floating point on all the currencies. Now, if the US does a bunch of stuff, the euro doesn't get affected, and the BRICS currency doesn't get affected. What gets affected is the XRP price of it, right? And then now they're creating the stable coin, the USD stable coin. So that's going to be a value mechanism that runs in the US faction. They're going to create a euro stable coin, I bet. And I would not be surprised if the next ETF that's coming is an XRP ETF. Because like Larry Fink literally will not, they asked him on live TV and he was like, I can't talk about that. And Ripple's already said they're going to IPO the moment this lawsuit settles, they're going to IPO. And XRP is very high likelihood that it gets classified as something called a SIFI, S-I-F-I, systemically important financial institution. The XRP ledger is poised to become something called a public good, where it becomes like the internet. And Ripple doesn't own it. Ripple doesn't run it. They don't have any control of it. The company Ripple doesn't actually have control of XRP at all. They're only custodian. They're not even the custodian. Somebody else is the custodian for the XRP that they have control of custody of and release, but they can't shut it down. They can't fuck with it. Like, well, the only people who can completely destroy it are the XRP holders. They're in control of the network itself. In the middle of all of that, as we see this process playing out in a more significant way, now you're going to start to see all these announcements of like, BRICS is doing this and the countries are doing that, and we're having a liquidity crisis. There's just this narrative is now starting to play out in a significant way. At some point, there's going to be the switchover. There's going to be the moment where everything switches. I am going to wait. If it's this cycle, I'm going to wait until then to take all the profits on XRP that I can.
If it's this cycle.
If it's this cycle. Otherwise, we still, I'm still just going to follow the trend-based stop loss strategy. Up to 5x, get my initial capital back. And then after that, 71% of the XRP is still left in the market. I let that run. No matter what, this process, if it plays out like it did in history, it goes in multi-week cycles. So this is weekly charts. This one was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks. 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks for this step, another 4 weeks for this step, and then this one was 4 weeks. So 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks, right? So it does happen over a multi-week process because that much liquidity pumping in, takes time to process. But after those 4 weeks, I'm keen on setting my stop losses, my trend-based stop losses, because if it comes back down, I want out, and then I'll rebuy again. Still debating that part. It's going to depend on where we are in the cycle. If that process happens by like the very end of the cycle, then I'm out. And then if it happens a little bit earlier, and I know there's a lot of liquidity still left to come into the markets, then I just take the profits and let the rest of it ride. So we'll keep you updated live.
Ready for the next question?
Yeah, always.
I hear this date of 2025, sometime in 2025. What's the action or the things that are coming to a head in 2025?
So November of 2025 is the completion of the deployment of the ISO 20022 banking messaging standard globally. So November of 2025 will be the last month when a system that translates messages from the old ISO system in the banking messaging standard to the new system. So it's like, right now, the old computers have been speaking a certain language when it comes to banking. They provide a certain amount of info and they're coded a certain way. The ISO standard is a completely new, more complicated, not even completely new, it's been built since 2014. Now, it's a more complicated messaging standard and code that needs to be used to run the banking system, right? It has a bunch of information inside and data and all this stuff. But for since 2022 until 2025 was this period where there would be this translation software used to be able to translate from the old code to this new ISO code, and people and banks and institutions globally were allowed to use that. By the end of 2025, that period is going to end. So any computer system in the banking world, in the financial world, that does not speak this language of ISO 20022 will not be allowed to transact with other financial computers. And that ends by the end of 2025.
Right.
The liquidity cycle peaks around 2025, the money printing cycle.
Oh, right.
By the end of 2025, it's, World War III goes into full-on hypermania mode if history pans out the way that it always does. We're exactly 80 years on from 1945, where the previous financial system started, the Bretton Woods system, which is 80-year cycles, would be right on schedule. There's so many things that are coming to a head at that point. Basically, this is the final cycle that crypto will be the way that we've remembered crypto. The wild west, freedom, all this kind of stuff type crypto. Between now and the next cycle, everything's going to change. They're going to put a regulatory noose around this whole thing. It won't be like legally. They're going to block you from moving a penny without reporting it all. Auto reporting on everything, and then just a whole bunch of stuff. Now, what's actually happening, so now answering your question from the beginning, what's happening is that wealth is transferring from the old global reserve currency to the new global reserve currencies, which are cryptocurrencies.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Ripple's not the only one. There's like XLM is another one that works in a similar way, but for different users in different jurisdictions. It's not as hooked up to everything, but it's also being used by certain central banks. There's going to be many other value mechanisms, right? Like right now in Dubai, you can buy coffee with their currency, Bitcoin, and XRP at the terminal.
Oh, so interesting.
You can buy cars with it. Like, they're not idiots, right? They're accepting their own currency, Bitcoin and XRP directly. But the transition that's happening from the old reserve currency to the new one is the process of us entering the new universal basic equity world.
Mm.
In the world we're moving to, there's going to be universal basic income recipients, and then there's going to be universal basic equity holders. Right? What we're doing is we're basically getting into the equity of the infrastructure of the future world, digital and physical. And I mean, this is all to say, this is just how the money moves physically in places. Imagine digitally in the metaverse, these rails being hooked up to every single thing and money seamlessly flowing for every experience, digitally, physically, metaphysically, whatever, right? But the people who own the networks that run the future of the system, those assets are just gonna, as they hyperinflate currencies, those assets inflate alongside. Last time it was gold. This time around, the collateral backing the system is all the financial products they've made, and the new system is, and the collateral backing the system is all the financial products they've made, and the asset itself is US dollar, which is dying. This time around, the transition is happening to the new US dollar equivalent asset, XRP for one, but all of these other assets that carry the value in the world. Now, as they hyperinflate the US dollar, first thing it's going to do is actually kill all the other currencies. Like, look at Indonesian rupiah. It's moving against the dollar now. It's like 16,000. But it went to 16,300 at one point, right? And and currencies are just going to lose value against the dollar because the dollar's dying, and there's nowhere else for the value to go. Whereas the cryptocurrencies are going to keep hyperinflating in dollar-denominated value, right? So that's basically entering this new system in a way where the ones who own these assets will forever have unlimited income. Whereas the ones who maintain the status quo and receive universal basic income, they will receive the CBDCs that will be forced to, they'll be forced to act a certain way according to certain parameters. The ones who are actually the asset holders, the universal basic equity holders, they'll have the freedom to pay to do what they want. That's what's going on. So now, risks. The biggest risk that I have to my XRP is me, always. The biggest risk is in between my ears, right here. Biggest risk to me, she's giggling, I know. right? The biggest risk to anybody actually is in between my ears. So in the art of, what Raul would say is don't fuck this up. Here's how you don't fuck it up, okay? If you're listening to this, you have had the patience of years, hopefully. If you haven't, good for you. But holding XRP, you know how that is. Just hold it, chill, relax. And when something happens, have a clear, actionable plan. It's like, okay, well, I'll repeat my plan. My plan is if I bought it for $1, when it goes to $2, I'm going to sell 20% of what I bought. So let's say I bought, $1,000 of XRP at $1. So now I have 1,000 XRP, right? Then when the $1,000 goes to $2,000, I'm going to sell $200 of XRP, 20% of the initial amount that I bought. Then and this now I have $1,800 of XRP left, right? Then it goes to $3,000. I'm going to sell another $200. Now I have $2,800 in XRP. And when it goes to $4,000, I'm going to sell $200. When it goes to $5,000, I'm going to sell $200. Done 5 times, I get my $1,000 back. That's the idea. And by the end, I have 71% of my XRP still compounding in the market. Fantastic. Then let's see what happens in the market. Then follow it up with trend-based stop losses. But even that I'm not going to do too quickly. Just let the process play out, because now between the middle of this year to the end of 2025 is the true liquidity cycle. And it's going to be so bananas, it's going to blow everybody's mind. But it's going to be bananas because the world is going to be going bananas around you. And I literally mean, you're seeing it all play out now. Cyber attacks and countries fighting and food insecurity, all of those things that have been kind of in the works, all at the same time, and complete confusion while in the background this process plays out. Next question, Russ. or we got questions online?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Is it taxed differently when it is not considered a security? Yes. Yeah, it depends on which jurisdiction you're in. Like here, all of them are considered a commodity right now, and so it's taxed at 0.1%. Securities are taxed differently. They're treated differently. There's different compliance regulations that you have to issue the securities. Certain securities only accredited investors can buy. It's a pain in the ass when it's a security. When it's not a security, then you have to classify it as something else, which means your tax treatment could be something else. What else? You got some good questions, Sam.
Yeah.
What's up?
I got another one.
Yeah.
So you say end of 2025, or from now to the end of 2025 is the true liquidity cycle. What are the indicators that the liquidity cycle is slowing down or shifting?
So I post a weekly report that literally, now we're posting a simple version of it, that literally says money started growing at this much rate in this central bank because of this, or money started growing at a slower rate. That's the liquidity update that I put in there. Right. That's one of the things that I'm stealing for you guys. And that is literally telling you, because it's not about how much money is in the system. It's about the rate of growth of the money in the system. Right now, there's about $171 trillion of liquidity in the system. If it goes to 172, it doesn't matter as much as how quickly it goes to 172. So when the rate of change is accelerating, the rate of change up or the rate of change down is accelerating, that's when the growth or drops in the markets happen. On the way down, if it's slowly going down, then the market moves slowly. If it moves fast, then the market moves fast. Right? So what are the signs? You can watch. See, one way to do it is you can watch the central banks. There's also the indicator that I've shown before, which is the M2. What's it called? This one's it's good enough. It's not like it's dead accurate, but it's a good enough reflection. It's called MF Global M2 by Meeg Finance, like that. And it's tracking as well as it can the M2 global money supply. And as soon as I saw, this is Matic. As soon as I saw this hump get made last time, I was like, okay, well, that tells me that the liquidity is starting to turn around and accelerate downwards, and just watching that play out in crypto. Now, there are times when liquidity moves and Bitcoin moves, but there are other times where Bitcoin just does random stuff, and just watching that play out in crypto. Now, there are times when liquidity moves and Bitcoin moves, But there are other times where Bitcoin just does random stuff. And that's where for me, it's like reading tea leaves, where, liquidity goes up, Bitcoin goes up. That makes sense. But then liquidity goes sideways and Bitcoin goes for a run out of the blue at a time it's not supposed to, right? Okay, yes, the ETF flows cause that to happen. Fantastic. But that's limited. Like, as soon as the ETF flows run out, guess what happens next? And people are like, oh, ETF is this. It's like, these guys make money. What do you think they do with the when they get a 100x growth, they take it, and liquidity is not there to support it. So then what do you think happens, right? But a deeper way to look at it is not just the M2, not just the central banks. The vast majority of liquidity is actually coming out of the shadow monetary system, the shadow banking system, which is actually tracked in that update that I sent out. And that is a bunch of entities.
What is the shadow banking system?
It's just a bunch of entities. Look up things like Maiden Lane. That gives you a really good example of shadow banking. Maiden Lane, Maiden Lane 1 and Maiden Lane 2. Those are the ones that we know. Maiden Lane 1 and Maiden Lane 2. This was companies that the Federal Reserve set up to shift all the garbage assets after 2008 from each bank that was collapsing into this entity. Effectively, it's a way to print money and pump it into the system without you seeing it, right? Because when they're using a company to buy all of these shitty assets, they're effectively printing money and pumping it into the system without us seeing it as such. And there's an infinite number of these. There's so many of these. Like I think the vast majority of flow comes out of these things.
Right. So print money without disrupting the value of the dollar, for example.
Oh, it disrupts the value because the markets speak back, but we don't see it from the spigots that we're watching, right? We go, okay, central banks printed this much. Yeah, but a central bank handed it to a bank, and the bank issued this many loans, which means they printed that much. And then those loans went to this company, this shadow company that then went out and bought assets, which means that printed money flowed into the system. But you don't see it as such. You don't see the central bank printing is actually a small piece of what the total amount of money that gets printed, because banks actually print the most amount of money. And institutions, by creating this equity system, is increasing the collateral pool, which is the actual money printing. So it's complicated. The point is, liquidity hasn't even started to truly go where it needs to go. Right. The real liquidity leg is ahead of us. This was just like a little ripple in pun unintended. This is like a little ripple in the liquidity pool. So now, action steps. Step number 1, meditate. Step number 2, if you're really busy, meditate even longer. Step number 3, don't get shiny object syndrome. Like, this is the point where the shiny object syndrome picks up and people start getting rid of their solid investments and running around chasing other things, right? Have a plan. Get your tax structure ready. If you have any significant amount of money in this, get ready for it to be a big enough amount of money that it's a problem. Is there a guarantee? No, there's no guarantees. I don't have a crystal ball, but I've been here for long enough that I've seen this show many times, and I think we're ready for some face melting action in the entire space. Now, XRP is not the best performing asset. It's not going to make you the most amount of money. Absolutely not. Like, it's not even close. There's 1,000 other bets you could make to make more money, right? Because you can take more risk and make more money. It's at what's the market cap at right now? Today it's valued at $30 billion. For it to go to $300 billion would be a 10x. I'm expecting, it could easily go to $500 billion or $500 billion. So $500 billion. That's still like a 15x from here. That's the kind of realistic targets I'm expecting for this thing. Could it go higher than that? Sure. If the whole space goes to like 12, 15 trillion, it going up to $1 trillion wouldn't be out of the question. Simply because it's one of the biggest ones out there, and because hopefully the use case starts to be deployed. Even if not, don't expect that. For me, it's the safest place for me to not lose my money, because it's been as good as a stable coin for so long. But also put it somewhere where I know it's cheap. I know that at some point the value gets accrued and everything is poised for it to do that. And then a question I had was like, okay, then what would you do with those profits?
Exactly. That's a great question.
Right. That's always the next question, right? It's like, what I would do with those profits is follow my strategy. And I've been thinking through this quite a bit. So it's like, if I know I'm the best investment I ever make, then I would take 10% of that, depends on how much money you have in there, but just for example's sake. I mean, I don't have any money. I don't have anything. Remember that. I'm just a poor little broke sim. Remember that. These are all examples. I don't have anything. But if I had something, let's say I had a decent bit of money in there, then like, something like putting 10% of the profits into a lifestyle bucket. Say, okay, I'm gonna, this is gonna be my living cash for the next 4 years, and make sure my lifestyle fits in that, or whatever the percentage is. That's my I'm good cash, and I don't need to work for money anymore bucket. Then I would take another let's say 40%, and then another 10% you give away completely. That's 20% gone. Take the other 30%, and I would deploy that into myself, my life, my business, my earning capacity, right? Whatever that investment looks like. Lay that out as a basically 4-year plan for me to grow myself, inner work, relationships, whatever stuff is part of you investing into yourself. And then the 50% that's left, just hold it as dollars, and I wait for everything to go to shit and crash again, and I buy it up again. Now, out of that 30% that's being invested, it might be real estate, it might be different businesses, it might be what I'm looking at is this time around, the conversation around real world assets is heating up, which means by the end of this bull run, everybody's going to be throwing money hand over fist at real world asset stuff. Okay? Because everything's lined up. So what else is coming in 2025? Every regulator that I spoke to, like Financial Action Task Force, the president, I was like, when's the plan to put the noose? When's the plan to tighten down the regulations? And the answer was 2025. Monetary Authority of Singapore, when's your plan? They said, we've already done it, but by the end of 2025, regulatory clarity. Indonesia government, end of 2025. Abu Dhabi Global Markets Regulator, end of 2025. Every SEC, literally the person from SEC, she was like, yeah, end of 2025. The whole world's regulatory frameworks get aligned and locked in, and the digital asset frameworks get set. That's the only thing that's missing from the RWA wave to really kick off. Now, what's going to happen, as it always does, is RWA is the hype this cycle. One of the hype things this cycle. All this money gets made in crypto markets, and it then gets deployed into projects for the next cycle. So by the end of this process, I'm going to be tokenizing the world, right? Companies, nature, FarmSense already going, models like that. And we're going to take these profits and deploy them into those models, and then let the crash happen. Because the whole point is to make money and put it somewhere, and then the next cycle is where RWA gets fed all of this institutional money on regulated rails, and we're the ones who get there first. Right? This DFTU experience has been very profound for me, and the FarmSense experience. FarmSense, I just loved the project so much that I was just like, let's do it. I never even talked about getting anything, and it was profound. That token, the token launched at 1 cent, and then it's at 5 cents now, and we haven't even raised any proper money for it, but the system's working and all that stuff. DFTU, it's a joke, and I just put the joke out, and now we instantly became the whales, and it 4x'd overnight, just at launch, and it's, again, still hasn't even gotten started yet. So getting in, I want to do projects where we get in on the ground floor. Now, are they all going to work? No, absolutely not. There's still going to be a bunch of them that failed. But at that point, if I'm taking my, house money, and I'm taking a certain amount of risk, like 10%, 15%, I'm happy to take up 50% risk on it. And knowing that these are projects that I'm investing into my business, and then out of that 50%, 20% of the projects work amazingly, and then hopefully, even if the 80% die, that's 10% of my capital being multiplied many, many orders of magnitude over, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going to be doing by the end of this cycle. And after that, I'm actually happy. For me, XRP is, and I've said this, used to say this before, and I'll say it again, XRP is my Bitcoin. You know how people want to make Bitcoin? And your goal is to get more and more Bitcoin instead of dollars over the cycles. I like that, because you're gaining an asset, and you're living your life denominated by an asset that's becoming more valuable. For me, XRP is that. Right? I want to stack, not sats, I want to stack XRP. Also, a little known fact is Bitcoin was called XBT when it launched. Okay, it was called XBT. And X marks the spot. Space X. Okay. And what's the new platform called from what's his face? X. He literally put an X in his like son's name. Okay. X, like XAU is gold, right? Everything is with an X. XBT is how they launched Bitcoin, and then we converted it into BTC. XRP, XDC, like there's just something about the X marking a spot, right? XLM. So like I'm just saying, just a little side gig there. When you say hold the profits in dollars, are you referring to actual cash and possibly lose out on inflation or USDT, USDC, or any other project? This is a great question, Sam. When they print money, it takes another 2 years for the prices of things to go up. In those 2 years, crypto goes bananas, right? So they print money, dump it into the system, you're holding the right assets, you make a shit ton more money in dollar terms, you've outran inflation. So what I do is I outrun inflation, and then I use that money. That's the real world stuff is still cheap, and you've made a bunch of money. Take a bunch of that and buy those other real world things. Like maybe you want to farm, maybe you build a little house or something. I don't know. Maybe you get ducks and chickens and goats and whatever's. That there's a bunch of that cash that goes in there. Now, if I'm holding dollars at that point, if you look at the dollar chart, the dollar gets weak. When the dollar drops, assets go up, right? Now assets are topping and dollars bottoming. So now dollars cheap, assets are expensive. I get more, that's why I get more dollars. I go and buy the dollar, assets dump, and the dollar goes up. So like if you think about it, from the top of Bitcoin until the bottom of Bitcoin, which was the single best asset to hold? Was it bonds? No. Was it real estate? No, because everything went down. It was the US dollar. Like if you had euros, you lost 30% of your purchasing power. If you had a British pound, you almost lost your pension, right? And the US dollar crushed everything. So that's the idea, that when the dollar's cheap, buy the dollar. Like we have to stop thinking about this thing like, oh, the dollar's just going to disappear one day. No, they have all the guns, man. I mean, you, Sam, you know, they have all the guns. So like the dollar is going to kill everything else first, but there are times when markets top that dollars are actually the best place that I can think of holding money. Plus, the dollars are instantly convertible into lifestyle in any place if you have a good off ramp, right? USDT, absolutely not. USDT is when that blows up, that is going to be like a nuclear bomb in the markets. Like we haven't seen the biggest bloodbath yet. I think when USDT blows up, especially these new regulations coming out, now they're going after Tether. There's just a whole bunch of stuff happening. Whenever they implode that thing, it's going to implode the entire market with it, and that's going to be the reason used to, in my approximation, that's going to be the reason used to say that, hey, you guys need regulations because you use this scam coin to do all of this stuff, right? USDC, that's literally backed by the U.S. government now. Even the bank, when it was collapsing, that Silicon Valley Bank that has the reserves to USDC, the Fed printed money and saved the bank. So it's a public company with a private CBDC that's already been launched, that right under our noses, backed by the U.S. government's debt, and it's a place for the U.S. government to dump its worthless debt onto us. So they're not letting it go anywhere. The question always, people are like, yeah, but what if the world melts down, Sim? What if we do go into the full-on, whatever I'm interested to watch it, but what if we do go up into that? What if the internet shuts down, all this crazy stuff? Then you got to have cash. Like in whichever country you're in, you got to have cash of that country. That's the only thing that's valuable at that point. If you're going to hold gold to make it through those times, that's the best way to die. You don't want to be the one with gold in the middle of that world, right? You want to be the one with just enough cash to be able to buy some food, but not enough cash to get stabbed to death, right? Or at least showing. But having actual cash, like here, Indonesian rupiah is fantastic. Keep like 1 million rupiah. Everybody's a billionaire here. So it's like keep 1 million rupiah, enough gas for me to get to the farm and make sure everything's taken care of. Otherwise, I couldn't care less what happens to the world. Do we have any other questions? I know you got a couple more, Rustin. I see the question face over there.
I'm just like letting it all wash over. Not sure at the moment. Random question, a little bit DeFi and farming and all of those things that were so popular a couple of years ago and then went down the gurgler. Do you see that? Do you see that coming back online? Liquidity pools, farming, all that kind of stuff.
With an absolute vengeance,
Huh.
because every time there's a new sector that gets launched, the first cycle is just the alpha test of the sector, right? The first cycle is a bunch of different models get invented, tested. Some collapse, some don't. Some go full Luna and don't work. You know, some go Uniswap and become part of the infrastructure. Blah blah blah. And a lot of things get invented in that cycle, which get missed. And by the next cycle, they mature, and that entire space matures, and then the real magic happens in that space, right? So it's like this time around, DeFi is part of the pillars of crypto. Is there going to be? There's probably going to be something from the U.S. if the way that they're moving, like going after Uniswap and all this stuff. There's probably going to be a shakeup that scares people out of DeFi, which is just a standard protocol these days in life. But for jurisdictions that can work with it, DeFi is going to be fantastic. And this is the last cycle where the degens, Wall Street gets to be degen, no regulations, full on back to the same old mania, right? It's like, take your money, put it into this ecosystem, put it inside of this, put it in here, put it into this coin, get this other coin, stake that other coin, and airdrop that other coin, and boom. And now you're 16 layers in. Yeah. And then, everybody's playing musical chairs, and the people who make money are going to crush it. But those are the ones that take their thing, unstake it, undo it, got the thing, get the Solana, and then turn it, get their stable coin, turn it into Solana, exit the ecosystem, turn it into dollars. Right? Yeah. So if you're gonna play, remember that the same old shit works every single time. For me personally, like DeFi I'm not really ethically aligned with DeFi. I mean, I'm happy to buy it as a project. It's not like I wouldn't buy it, but it's just, I'm like, okay, this is just a Ponzi. We know it's a Ponzi. We know that there's a bunch of people coming in who don't know that the exit door closes sometimes, and I'm not happy to play that game. And my simple thing is this, like, I don't want to give my coins to anybody else. I don't care if you give me 10%, 15%, 20%, does not matter. I'm not giving you anything, right? If I'm giving it to you, I'm assuming you're never going to give it back. That's it, right? So whatever you do it with, even if you do it with the profits, do it with the amount that is like as good as flushed. And if it comes back, fantastic. It'll make your day.
Okay. All right. Ready for the next question?
Yep.
I'm going to give you 10 grand and until December 2025 to make me as much money as possible. Sim, what am I going to stuff it in?
Wait a minute. You give me 10 grand and we have
timeline end of 2025, December 2025.
So it needs to be, okay, we're going to try to make the most amount of money. And if we lose it, it's fine.
It's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Then,
so I'm talking meme coins. I'm talking whatever, high risk, high reward.
Then I would honestly put it all onto. I don't even want to say this. I don't want to say it because then people are just going to go do it. Like right. Me personally, I would go put it onto DFTU.
Onto what?
On DFTU. Don't fuck this up.
Alrighty.
I would just find the highest risk thing that I have the biggest edge in.
Yep.
And I go by that with that. Right? Understanding that it's gone.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know what I mean? Should you do that? No, because like you're literally just going to lose all of your money, right? Now, a better question is, okay, let's say I have 10 grand and I can't lose it. I don't want to lose it, and this is like the only 10 grand I have. Then what do I do with it? You know what I mean? Okay, in that scenario, I would take like 2,000 to 3,000, and I'd put it in XRP because I just know that one's great. On this next pullback, I put some of it into Solana, depending on my risk range. I put some of it into Solana. I put some of it into something like Chainlink. That's like the data that sits in between real world assets, and it's just data pipelines. And then I take a bit of it and I go down the risk curve and I buy like projects on Solana that are due to do pretty well. And if you've watched it this far, I appreciate you. So I'm just going to say some things. Something like Jupiter. Jupiter is the 1 inch of Solana. Orca is the Uniswap of Solana, or looking to be. W is like an interledger or a protocol. Look it up yourself. Okay, W wormhole. Jito is a liquidity pool on Solana.
Not Radium.
Radium is another good one. I would take Jupiter over Radium just because like it's an aggregator, so it actually dips into more pools.
Uh-huh.
And in my experience, people are using Jupiter more.
Right.
But the point is, like, buying all of those things is it's the proven something of Solana, and like Solana's proven.
Leveraging Solana.
Right. So if Solana 10x's and your project 10x's, in dollar terms, you 100x.
Yeah.
Right. And now that we've gone through this wave, I mean, we've seen that liquidity actually flowed to Solana. That tells us the appetite that the market has for this ecosystem. And this is before the real stuff happens. So then just imagining that liquidity flowing down, if I'm going down the risk curve, then I'm happy to leverage, get the edge of knowing that I'm on Solana, but then on stuff that's exposing me to higher risk. So Paul, what's going to happen is one day we're going to wake up, right? It always happens like this. I think it'll probably happen while we're awake and the West is sleeping, right? One day we're going to wake up, and for seemingly no reason, XRP is just going to be bananas. If it plays out like it does in history, is like no warning, and one day you wake up and you're like, is this thing broken? Is my phone broken? Because it's showing numbers that don't make sense. That's it. And then sit patiently, and that thing we talked about. Remember that you have not made any money. You're actually negative all of the money that you put in. Okay, no matter what that number on the screen says, then go open your bank account and look at that number. And that number should be a different number. And you should know that, okay, that whatever risk I've taken on XRP is what I'm negative. And then that'll get your feet on the ground, let the process play out. We'll have emergency meetings and stuff. And you'll see the kind of action plan playing out. There's no perfect way of doing this. You're going to fuck it up. Like, there's no perfect way of, nobody calls the top of the market. Everybody has their own kind of way. It's going to be clunky. You're probably going to look back at some things and be like, ah, shit, I should have left it, or I should have whatever. The regrets are going to be always there, but expect that within these next 2 years, this process is going to play out. Now, if this triangle that we were looking at plays out the way that it looks like it's supposed to, the way triangles do play out, then at least that's putting it at a target of, and again, please don't go by these targets. I don't know anything, okay? Please listen to people smarter than me. If you want to listen to somebody, listen to Blockchain Backer. He does a great analysis. Garrett's always been very right about his analyses on all of this stuff. Crypto Crew University has been dead on with his analysis of all the coins, and his XRP analysis says a similar thing. So please listen to people smarter than me. But this is pointing towards a $4 XRP just from this triangle breakout move. And then what it does, I don't know. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to $10. By the time it's at $10, I'm happy to just take some decent chunks out well before. Could go as high as 17 in my reflection, but then again, it's crypto. Like, it could go as high as bananas, right? Stuff stops making sense. Like last time, Doge was at $91 billion market cap. Ford is at a $50 billion market cap after 100 years of making cars, and Doge is at a $91 billion market cap last time. The joke. What these legit coins do this time and what the jokes do this time is, I think, it's going to be mind blowing. I think we're all underestimating the process that's going to play out this time. Now, one big risk that I'm looking at is I don't think it's going to be that easy this time. I think this chaos could be tied into, liquidity crises, banking crises, exchange crises. USDT could go. There's a lot of chaotic things that can happen that can literally block the whole system and make it so that you can't get out, right? So my goal is to actually make sure I'm taking profits along the way when the times are good, because when that end hype mania process happens, I wouldn't be surprised if internet's shutting down and banking systems are shutting down and whatever. Nothing is out of the question at this point. We are in the final stages of this 5th generation warfare, So I would advise making sure that you take out your initial investment and turn it into something real in the world quicker. And you're going to watch it happen. Let's see how it goes. But I would, before the end of 2025, which is when all of this stuff is supposed to peak, I want most of the assets out, right? At some point, be ready to hit eject on 80% of your stuff and be happy with what you got, and then keep a 20% moon bag that can go wherever, right? Otherwise, waiting until the end might be futile, because I think a lot of people are going to get stuck in the trade, like they always do, right? Luna was making everybody rich until that one day. right? And if people just, the same thing played out with all of them. The value DFTU adds to society is nothing. It's a joke. It's a complete joke. It's an experiment. It's a joke. It does nothing more than it's retarded. That's it. Like, please don't buy it for anything to do with value in society. That's what I'm saying. When you buy it, it's almost certain that you've lost all your money. That's how I like to look at it, right? Now, a positive way of looking at it is the reason why I got that NFT for Real Vision. It was $700, and I was like, I don't want to spend $700 on an NFT. That's like a lot. That's my first NFT. I've never even bought an NFT. I don't see the point. I don't want to buy just images and stuff. It said this is season 3 NFT, and one of the perks is that you get to be part of the tokenization of Real Vision. And to me, I was like, okay, that's great, because I'm a tokenization guy, and the Real Vision's one of the most valuable communities, and I want to, and Raul and his people are geniuses. That community's full of geniuses. I want to see how the geniuses tokenize Real Vision. And then, so I bought that NFT, didn't think much about it, and then this panel starts with a chat about DFTU and how the community is launching a token just as a joke. That's when I realized, I was like, wait a minute, this is the first alpha test of the community tokenization, right? Because the community is tokenizing a token, launching a token, and it's gated by the NFTs. So because of that, I'm like, I want to see how it plays out. So now one of the functionalities, one of the real world values that I'm building in is anybody who holds DFTU, if you come to Bali, make sure you contact me, because I'll give you a free coconut on the beach and I'll hang out with you. That's a pretty big functionality. We get to go for coconuts on the beach. Now we're going to hold an event here where we're going to bring Raul Paul. And the people who hold DFTU will be the priority people contacted to get access to invite-only tickets to this thing. And there's going to be some free tickets, and I'm going to give those away to people who hold DFTU, right? To hang out with Raul Paul. Like, that's a pretty big functionality. So like I myself am building the value mechanisms of what value it adds to society. Exactly, brother. I'm down. Fresh coconuts all day. But that's it. Now, other than that, it's a joke. It's hilarious. It's already 4x since launch, but it's still a joke, right? For me, it's my first foray into meme coins. The way they launched it was amazing. You should watch that video that we posted. They launched it in a way where they purposely made it look like a scam. They like set up the tokenomics in a way so every scammer made it look like a scam. So the degens and the bots didn't buy it, and they got the community onboarded, and then they burnt 98% of the supply, and everything looks good. That's a great model that I was like, okay, this is genius. If you want to launch a coin and you want to protect from the degen attacks, then you build it in a way where their systems make it look like it's the solid meme coins act like a scam to launch and then become legitimate. Isn't that backwards and weird? The scammy meme coins look legit at the beginning, and then they're scams when they launch, right? So interesting reflection. But also, let's see, it's gonna be fun. The altcoin season at the moment, I think we just had the question is, can you speak about where the altcoin season is now? I think we just had a blip in the radar of altcoins, right? Because when you look at the liquidity flows, Bitcoin got the vast majority of the liquidity flows. It got it through the ETF. So actually, the ETF flows don't come out to the market, right? They have to go in through the BlackRock door and stay inside of the BlackRock ecosystem. And those profits have to then flow back out and profit taking, and then it flows down the chain. Normally what happens is, the money would flow into Bitcoin, and then right away it flows from Bitcoin to altcoins. That's why things would move at the same time. This time that didn't happen. This time, the liquidity flowed into the ETF, and most of it didn't flow out. So we only saw certain narratives pumped. AI pumped, certain narratives pumped, but it's not really pumped. They just had like a little pimple. Yeah, Solana 20 or whatever, 10x. So what? Like, it's going to crash back down again. Then you buy it again, it's probably going to 10x from there. Easy, right? The real altcoin season hasn't even started. Altcoin season starts when Bitcoin goes into full-on price discovery, right? And price discovery is like above its previous all-time high in a significant way. And then it actually happens when Ethereum goes into full-on price discovery, right? When Ethereum goes beyond its all-time high and it's just pumping by itself. that tells you that the risk is, the risk appetite is growing, and then the altcoins all pump as a result. This time around, I wouldn't be surprised if we just have this popcorning effect like we kind of had in 2020, where different coins were popping at different times, especially XRP. It's it breathes its own, it hums its own tune. It'll just popcorn and explode the way that it does by itself if history plays out the way that it has. But even everything else, expect that there's going to be this popcorning effect. Certain narratives will play out at certain times. The AI coins had and networks had pumps because of NVIDIA hype cycle, and that was really good for quite a few people. Same thing's going to happen going forward. But just when that insane wave of liquidity hits the markets and comes in, which, by the way, this time's not going to look the way that it did previously. They're finding a lot of creative ways to print money and pump into the system. When that actual wave hits, it's going to take everything alongside it. It's going to take everything with it, down to all the shit coins and garbage. I mean, not all of them, but there's a bunch of coins that are just dead, right? And those are that's the garbage we're talking about. But all the solid stuff is going to go alongside it, and that's going to be the real altcoin season. And so I'm not expecting that to fully play out until, I don't know, 2025 and later on, because that's when the risk appetite seems like it would shift to an insane level. Thank you guys for your time. TLDR, good times ahead. Don't fuck this up. Love you guys. See you next time.